Talking about race is something Chief Kurt Putney has been doing as the leader of Charlotte-Mecklenburg's police department. After what Charlotte went through in 2016, race was a regular conversation inside CMPD.
And Scott, that's why I wanted to talk to Chief Putney today. We've heard him speak about the protests, but I wanted to know what's going on behind the scenes and what officers are talking about and being trained on as it relates to race. Are conversations taking place within the department about things going through diversity training or dismantling racism training?
All of that is still ongoing. And Erica, the truth of the matter is this is more about education than training. This is not a check the box. This is changing the heart, not just the head. Your knowledge is one thing. How you behave and respond is something totally different. So it's a deeper dive that we continue to talk about in the area of implicit bias. We all have them. The way to get over them and to get by them is to connect with people different than yourself, which you know for the last 5 years and 8 years prior to that under Chief Monroe, we've been very intentional about that. People are quick to dismiss it because they see something happen that looks very, very unsettling, something that looks awful even. I get that. I have the same initial reaction, but I also am encouraged because people are reaching out to us to have deep conversations and then take action. I told them if you're only going to do the words, you're going to espouse words and not do work, I'm getting old and long in the tooth. I'm tired of that transaction. What I really want is the words followed by action that leads to results, and I'm much more encouraged today than I was a couple of weeks ago.
When officers or recruits are going through and preparing to become a part of the force and they have polygraph tests and they have, questionnaires and psychologicals, are they asked questions like, have you used the N-word? Why? Are they asked those questions that might raise a flag or let someone know that there's an issue?
Psychological and the polygraph, no. But in our behavioral, absolutely. And in our in-depth interview with our recruiters, when you get closer to the end of the cycle of those battery of tests, absolutely. Very specific. They put you in positions and situations as well and see how you respond so that we can elicit what's deep-seated and what you're really about. I tell you, your parents give you good character, we make you good cops. And the way to get good cops is through people who are recruited and hired who have good character. So those are exactly the concepts that we probe into deeply. It's disappointing that one error can make people go back to where we were 5 years ago asking those questions, but it just shows me more work's yet to be done, and we're up to the task of doing it.
Have you noted any things that needed to be added to that process or to those questionnaires or situations?
Sure. What I see is we got to continue the conversation and the transparency workshops for the community. We got to get more people who see exactly why we do what we do and give us feedback so we can do it better. Those conversations, we're going to redouble those efforts. Again, there's a matter of capacity, but there also has to be a willingness. What I'm seeing too is we have to create the safe environment so people can have a conversation about a controversial topic such as race without vilifying people who have a slip of the tongue. That is exactly how we attack it in our organization, and we want to replicate that with more public forums that we have.
I also asked Chief Putney about his personal experience with police going back to his youth and about the work he plans to continue doing even after he retires this year. Your experience of being stopped by cops or being profiled or any situation that you experienced like that?
Mainly a stop by cops. It started with my father's murder that they didn't investigate. And that was a traumatic incident that I still carry to this day. And so when I see blue lights, I harken back to that. I have been stopped. I have officers who haven't been as tactful or as courteous as I would have liked. Those kinds of things compounded my frustration, distrust, and dislike for this profession. And until I got into the academy and was face-to-face sitting right near people who are totally different than me but inspired to answer a calling that I had doubts and skepticism about, that really changed my perspective. People keep talking about the Black Lives Matter, Chief. I mean, that's cute. To me, it's not a tag or a movement. The essence of it is they matter to me all the time. There's been too many Black lives lost to equivocate on that answer. It's the truth. It's exactly what we take that oath for. And it's not just black lives, it's all lives, but black lives in particular, because those are the most tragic. Those are the ones we're losing at a higher rate. We talk about disproportionality, we talk about quotas in hiring. We stop short of talking about, though, how tragic it is to lose the lives of those who need us most. And that's why we're so heavily involved in trying to break this cycle of violence. People deserve it. Charlotte deserves it. We have to be better.
And Scott, the chief told me that he hopes to stay here in Charlotte after he leaves CMPT and retires. And just imagine his experience personally and professionally. He wants to work with our young people. What a powerful impact he will have.
Certainly, you can see why, Erica, he got into law enforcement, and his perspective is one every new recruit needs to hear moving forward.